It was bizarre to think only but, what, 2 weeks ago now, the Tory party had been its most united it had probably been since Margaret Thatcher was large and in charge. Um, go away, go away, go away. There we go. Was large and in charge. So we had a united Tory party. When the Tory party tends to be united, there tends not to be too much, internal politicking going on. They're pretty much united over this. But out of nowhere, Boris comes and announces that he's going to um, introduce the own internal market bill to apparently stop the EU from doing something which they've never threatened to do and could never actually physically do themselves. It's just not in their power to do. But you know, such are the whims of Brexiteer fancies that the EU is just this evil monster, and where the plucky little squire slaying the dragon. You know, that's the stuff that Brexiteer fantasies are made of. But now, out of nowhere, Boris Johnson has not one Tory rebellion, not two Tory rebellions, not three Tory rebellions, but four, Kes, four Tory rebellions. And one, surprisingly, is from himself. But we'll get into this article now. So this comes from the Independent, and it's Boris Johnson now faces four Brexit rebellions, including one from himself. It's unfortunate to have to do this as early as the very first sentence, but just so you know, the forthcoming column is nominally a work of satire. It is my job to make fun of politicians, to do so to point out the hypocrisy and the absurdity of what they're up to. But my goodness, and not for the first time, there is almost nothing to distinguish the following from the other straightforward news reporters to be found elsewhere on this website. And so we begin. The Prime Minister, having called a general election to secure the backing of his party and his country for his oven-ready deal with the EU, having purged the Tory party of almost all its moderate voices, and having won an 80-seat majority for doing it, now faces four separate rebellions over the deal, one of which is his own. So, we ran out of hyperbole years ago. Those of us who write about Brexit for a living should arguably have held something back for now. Suddenly, it's clear that we've all been sort of shouting along to Living on a Prayer for 4.5 years, and now the final chorus is coming up. The key change has kicked in, and we can't get anywhere near it. British politics now exists in a realm where only dogs can actually hear it. For one to go through these four rebellions one by one. So first, you have Boris Johnson's rebelling against his own deal on the grounds that it never made sense. And so it is legislating to undermine it in the House of Commons via a piece of legislation called the Internal Market Bill, which his government has breezily admitted breaks international law. In its defence, it seeks to claim that the EU is trying to obstruct the free movement of food and other goods between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, and so action must be taken. The truth, or otherwise, is that this is fiendishly complex, but it will do merely to say that it was precisely for this reason that Theresa May rejected the deal Johnson agreed, and is now rejecting on the grounds that no British Prime Minister could ever agree to it. In May's defence, she said these words before the list included Johnson, who did agree to it, and is now very publicly disagreeing with himself, in the style of Alan Partridge's one-man argument in his car with the imaginary Chris Rea, but is expecting other people to take the blame. Second is led by the softly spoken Sir Bob Neill. if you have if you have what's left of the Tory moderates, who arguably should have arguably stood down instead of supporting the withdrawal agreement, now reduced to a state of semi-horror. Now reduced to a state of semi-horror and having to try and force through an agreement they loathe anyway. Third, you have Michael Howard, now Lord Howard. So, you may recall, is so keen on Brexit that he was happy to accidentally declare war on Spain over it from the comfort of his own sofa one Sunday morning. And other Conservative members of the House of Lords will be doing all they can to try and ensure that this legislation does not pass. And then last, and absolutely always last, you have the European Research Group, known as the ERG. Indeed, it is up to the ERG's great good fortune that it is known as the ERG. If it were more ordinarily referred to by its full title, more people would then spot that it contains both the words European and research. And yet, for over the last 5 days, several of its members have appeared on television and in one newspaper to explain that in 2 months, at the end of the last year, when they fought a general election on the basis of the withdrawal agreement and won it by miles and then voted it through, it was in fact, quote, unforeseen, as Ian Duncan Smith said, that it was not Brexit after all. There have always been doubts about whether the members of the European Research Group were ever really into research until now. To illustrate the quality of the research to be found within the European Research Group, I've occasionally likened it to point out that Nadine Dorries, one of its members, and a week after the referendum in 2016, she explained how, quote, the Norway model has always been my preference. Which is to say, until then, her preference had always been to stay in the single market, to keep free movement of people, and to keep making huge payments into the EU budget. She changed her mind on that shortly after she found what it actually meant, and would always recently come to describe the Norway model supporters in her own party as traitors. Well, that's well within the audible range of Brexit lunacy these days. If it was taking a year to realise that the most important bit of European legislation in half a century actually meant that it's a 10 on the research scale, has anyone else ever scored above a 1? So where we will go next is hard to actually say. Will any of us be able to see or even hear it? And for those of us who have been screaming our throats horses out at this madness of it for over 4.5 long years, we've been psychologically in the cab home from the Brexit House of Horrors for some time. Let them do their worst. The catastrophic orchestra of disagreeable dunces and lunatics. Let no one say that they haven't been warned. And this is what I've been saying, really, for over the past year. There we go. That they are just absolutely insane, and we've covered these people multiple times. You've only got to look at, as was said there, Nadine Dorries. And she's not the only one. And I'm sorry, I'm struggling to think now. I can't remember his name. Only a fool would leave a single market. Daniel Hannan, that was it. Daniel Hannan said this, and he wasn't the only one to say that, being like Norway was an acceptable idea. Even Nigel Farage was on board for being in the, quote, Norway option. The thing is, once they got the referendum done, it was all of a sudden, oh my God, that's not Brexit. It really, really does blow your mind that these people are, in charge and still to this day do not understand the European Union and how it works, despite for over, as was said there, 4 decades being in a group called the European Research Group, keywords research there, knew nothing about the European Union, had almost no plans to actually leave the European Union, although technically Farage did. He even submitted one to the election authority because he wanted to try and lead the Leave campaign, but he decided not to. They had a full campaign of where there were two referendums. There would be the first one, and then there would be a second confirmatory referendum. You know, this is all just It goes beyond ludicrous understanding, and I understand what he's been saying there. I've been on this channel for 4 years now, saying exactly the same things, making exactly the same warnings and predictions of, do you realise what you are saying? Do you realise what's going to happen? And I agree, we're at the last home hurdle, but as I've often said, this is only the beginning of this whole saga, so we haven't even properly started yet. But also, you know, Brexit dies on the 1st of January 2021. It has no legs beyond that. Up after that, it's the Conservative Party are going to try and push through their, quote, true agenda. You wanted parliamentary security, sovereignty. Well, just look at the number of instruments that the Conservatives have been putting in place so that they could literally just walk into a room, just 4 Tory MPs, walk into a room and just go, yeah, we don't like that regulation anymore. Whoop. And it's gone the next day. You know? So much for, parliamentary sovereignty, eh? I thought Parliament was meant to be having a say on this type of things. But once again, it's just, buzzwords that mean nothing to them in the long term. And, we were saying that from day one as well. But there you go. So, with that, thanks for watching. Please do hit that like and subscribe button if you are new. We do talk a lot about British politics and Brexit because they are completely, inseparable. And it will be with us for a long, long time to come until we actually join the European Union. So, with that said, also there are links down below should you like to support the channel another way. Link to my Patreon page as well as a one-off donation link should you like to support me that way. That would be very much appreciated, and thank you to the people that do so already. Your support is absolutely wonderful. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.